Hello, I am Bentham and today we're playing Factorio. So, in the previous episode, we set up a bit of oil production and built an outpost or two out to the east of our base to get iron and things like that. And so today what we want to do is make use of our coal and I suppose our iron as well to improve our power. Because basically at the moment we're having a little bit of an energy crisis. We're running entirely off steam engines still. And I don't want to build any more. We've got 6 of them and the pollution that they're generating is horrible and I don't want to be producing that much. And so what I want to do is get up some solar panels and some accumulators. I've got a couple of solar panels up, but at the moment there's no accumulators, and for that we need batteries. For batteries we need sulfuric acid, and for sulfuric acid we need sulfur. So as you saw back there, I just set up the sulfur production, and now what I'm doing is siphoning off a section of the iron and copper, and also the research for accumulator just came through, so now we are actually capable of creating them. So I siphon off this section and run it a bit to the right, and then I have a quick look at the requirements for sulfuric acid and so on, and I start piping or conveyor belting the sulfuric acid up to a similar location to the new bit of copper and iron. And then what we do is we get an assembler, and then we realise that an assembler is not what we want. We in fact want something else. We want a refinery. Except there. So we want, not a refinery. Is it a refinery? What is it? It's an oil processing thing? I don't know what it's actually called now I think about it. But you know what I mean, one of those things. And we need to pipe in some water, and then we set up a inserter to get the sulfur and the iron, and that will then make sulfuric acid. We then get a storage tank for the sulfuric acid, and that gets piped into another one of the whatever they're called, which produces batteries, and then the batteries get taken by an inserter and put into that chest there. And so once we've got some of those created, we can use the batteries and some iron plates to make accumulators, and then finally we can start phasing in solar power to our power grid and not have to rely so heavily on coal and things like that, because the aliens are angry and dealing with them is difficult. So a bit of our copper production just ran out there, so I removed that and then decided to balance out the loss by adding a new bit of production over to the east. No, the west actually. It's the west. I called it the east earlier as well, didn't I? It's the west. The east is just a big lake that you can't do anything with. So I just grabbed some coal and run around inspecting our various systems, all the stone production and things like that I don't pay much attention to. And I grabbed myself some ammo as well. At the moment I actually have quite a lot. I've got a full 100 and something magazines of ammo at the moment. So I run down to the south base and have a look at the situation there, do a bit of resupplying, decide it needs an extra gun because of the number of things that have been throwing themselves at it. There are 2 bases down there that are within the pollution zone, and so they're both sending their attack forces, though they are both quite small, so it's not too much of a problem. But I've run over to the solar panel thing and then forget what I went over there for and come back again and carry on with what I was doing. What am I doing now? Ah yes, now I'm finally setting up some accumulators. I got some made from the batteries that we got, and now we can finally actually store some power during the day to use at night, assuming that we generate enough power during the day, which at the moment we don't, because all we have is the 8 solar panels, and I realised this after looking at the power grid, and carry on setting up accumulators anyway, and then in a minute I'm going to go sort out the solar panels. So I run over and just quickly check the recipe and then grab all the circuitry off the production line and start producing some. It does take a while to pick it all up, even with the machines working as fast as they can. I'm noticing that currently the production of copper wires can't quite keep up with the constant production of circuits, so I'll have to deal with that in some way. Thing is, I set the whole production line there up in a slightly awkward position. I didn't really think through what I was doing, and so it actually will be crossing over some locations such as the sulfur production and things like that, which limits how much I can expand things. An important thing to take into account when you start setting up manufacturing in Factorio is to make sure that there is room to grow, because you will almost certainly be growing, unless you die horribly, in which case it was probably because you weren't growing quick enough, or maybe you grew too fast, depends. Though of course if you get solar power up and running and things like that, then growing too fast isn't that much of a problem anymore, because as long as you don't bother the aliens, you can just do what you want. And if any problems like power losses come along, then you can fix them with more solar panels. They are the answer, in my opinion. And maybe it's a more fun playthrough if you have a million like steam engines, because then you actually have to deal with invading aliens, but I prefer to try and factor them out as quickly as possible, and it just makes everything easier. Because that's similar to just turning off the aliens entirely, but then you wouldn't be able to harvest their alien artifacts in that case. So I decided, instead of just standing at the end of this production line grabbing all the circuits, I'll set up some smart inserters to draw the circuits off of the production line, so that it can carry on moving while I'm not there. And then I go over and so it's doubling the supply of a lot of the guns along the gun line, seeing as we have so much spare ammo at the moment, and resupplying myself on things like steel and stuff like that. And I noticed that there is another iron base that has now run out, and I don't actually do anything about that. What I should really be doing is running over to the outpost that we have and setting up some more, but I think at the moment the production of iron ore is greater than the consumption, or can be. So it's not too much of a problem. I mean, we do still have some power problems. I think at this point they're being dealt with a little bit, because we are adding some more solar panels to the system. But at the point where we started to add the solar panels, we were already at a point where production of energy was nearly like almost half of what it was actually required. Anyway, I set up another smelter for the iron, seeing as the actual production of ore is probably good enough for now. And then run around and resupply everything with coal. Something that it's getting to be... eventually I'm going to be phasing in electricity completely, and then I'll be able to just use electric furnaces, and I won't have to run around refueling everything with coal anymore. And that's not too far off now. I start off with it in this particular video. So I'm adding even more accumulators to the system, because we want lots of redundancy at this point, because once we've phased in solar power and accumulators, we want to start phasing out steam engines and reducing our need for coal and just our general production of pollution. So I run over and increase further the size of our solar field, adding lots this time, practically doubling the number of solar panels. In fact, it might well be doubling it. Well, it definitely is now, because I'm still going. At this point, our solar production is getting really good. It's at some point it exceeds our actual. Yep, yeah, it's already done it. So far our let's see, the production is what, 3.9 whatever units it was, and our steam engines only do 2.6. So at this point, more than half of our power supply is solar panels, and that means that actually the steam engines can power down for some parts of the day, or at least partially, because the solar panels will be able to bear the weight of the power usage. Of course, during the night they will switch back on, because the priority is solar panels, steam engines, accumulators. Because if you had a system where the steam engines switched off and then the accumulators switched on, you could get to a point where the accumulators run out, and then the steam engines have to switch on, and they may not be able to deal with the entire system. Originally I was annoyed about this until I realised that it's the only way to really make it work. Although I suppose there are certain systems where you would want the order to be different from what it really is, but it's not really that big of a problem. And I'm sure at some point there'll be an update which allows you to prioritize different systems. Like at the moment there's certain priorities for power usage on different systems. I think there are some systems that are given more priority for power than others when there's a shortage. So anyway, I'm running around just getting on with various things. I kind of lost track of what I was doing. I was just talking about the power supply and things. I would say, suppose setting up more accumulators and things like that. Looking at the power system now, it now works. We are fully supplied with power, and we got through the night without the accumulators running out, and now they're recharging nicely. So what that means is that it's time to start putting electric furnaces in. So first of all, we replace that steel production, just because it's the easiest one to do. We don't have to move anything around. We just have to take out the old furnace and put in the new one. And then I start working on some new production, because now that we're making everything electric, including the furnaces, we want to make things more powered. We want to make things more efficient, and so I set up an assembler to produce, what are they called? I remembered, effectivity module. That's it. Effectivity modules. It's a slightly awkward name. You could probably give it a different name, like efficiency. Maybe people get that confused with productivity modules. But whatever the case, I start producing those, and what they will allow us to do is to reduce the power usage of particular installations, such as the electric furnaces and the assemblers, and that will just be generally good for us because the power usage will drop, and it means that we don't have to keep adding more and more solar panels, and it will also reduce the pollution, so the aliens will get less angry with us, and hopefully they will stop bothering us altogether at some point because we'll stop bothering them. So I add some more solar panels, because even though at the moment our system is working, we want to add some redundancy, as I said, and if nothing else, it will mean that the steam engines are on less of the time, which will improve reduce pollution without us actually having to demolish any of the steam engines. What will happen is that during the night the steam engines will come on fully, and then the accumulators will supplement that, and so that is what that's where we'd want to start reducing the steam engines. And what might happen now is that the pollution rate will it'll start to kind of expand and contract with the day-night cycle, and interesting stuff like that. So we might get a ton of alien attacks during the night and not so many during the day. But anyway, I realized that I used up too much ammo before, and our ammo surplus has turned into a shortage, so I take some out of the places that I put it into earlier, and then also even out the distribution of ammo, and then I build a new wall, because I think it's probably not a good idea to have our solar field exposed to the wilderness when we plan to have it as it is our main power supply at this point. So I build a new wall there to protect them, and it allows me to deconstruct the old wall, though I do leave the turrets there just in case, and we'll be able to use that wall elsewhere, I suppose, like on a new outpost, because we'll need more iron outposts at some point, extending on from the one that we currently have over to the west. So then I run down and probably forget what I have to do, forget what to do for a second, and then decide to put even more accumulators in. As I said, redundancy. We just want to get tons of them, ridiculous amounts, so that the system will just run for hours. I suppose it will take, technically it's weeks, but in Factorio time, but in actual playing time it's hours. And it'll mean that we don't have to keep expanding the production every time, expanding the accumulator capacity every time we make any additions to the system. So now what I do is I decide to phase in electric furnaces in place of the current furnaces that we use. I can't remember what, the aluminium furnaces or something like that. It doesn't matter. So because the electric furnaces are wider, I have to use a different conveyor. I have to shift it over to one side, but what that allows me to do is, I can still phase things in, because I can have a different conveyor belt for the electric furnaces than the normal furnaces. What I also do is grab some effectivity modules from the new assembler, so that I can make these new furnaces a lot more efficient than the old ones, because they're not burning any coal, and what power they are using is reduced by the effectivity modules. They reduce it, I believe, to 40% of the norm. Once I have some more powerful effectivity modules, I can reduce it to 20%, which is really awesome. So anyway, I start slowly phasing out the old furnaces and phasing in the new ones by cutting off the supplies and then deconstructing them when they're done. And it means that there's not too much of there's no sudden drop in iron production while I have to build this new system, because we want everything to keep on running. We want the science to keep on being done. At the moment we're doing a lot of military stuff just to make sure that we are fully capable in that sense. But anyway, as we set up these final furnaces, we get to the end of the episode. I think in the next episode we're going to sort out some oil production and things like that, because that seems like the next logical step, and we'll also be sorting out production of green science packs, because we're definitely going to need that. So anyway, I put a bunch of effectivity modules into those furnaces, and so that greatly reduces the power consumption of them. And that's pretty much it for this episode. So we will sort out green science and more oil stuff in the next episode, and until then I shall say goodbye. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you next time.